everyone. It's Robin Young from NPR and WBUR's Here and Now, streaming live from the WBUR CitySpace YouTube and Facebook channels. We welcome all of you. And by the way, if you haven't yet already done so, please subscribe to our channel so that we can notify you when we are going live, as we are now. It's so exciting because we are going to have a conversation with Jessaymyn Stanley, the goddess who is also human, very much human on the yoga mat. But before we have that conversation, she is going to give us a 30-minute yoga class. How lucky are we? So unfurl your mats because we're about to have a class. And then we're going to take a 15-minute break and you can change or get a glass of water or whatever. I have my mat here, but I can't roll it out yet because my cat, for some reason, thinks it's for him to pee on. And so I will walk over and unfurl it. And we'll have our conversation after the class and then a break. Jessaymyn Stanley, it'll be so great to talk to you again. Take it over.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Robin, and thank you for having me. Thank you Here and Now. Thank you, WBUR. Thank y'all so much for having me. I am a yoga teacher because that's what I say, but honestly, I'm just a practitioner, just like anyone else. And I show up here for healing in the way that I think many of us do. And I feel very honored and humbled for this opportunity to practice with you today. I know that it can be a lot sometimes to take a moment out of your day that is just for you. It's sometimes easier to focus on other people, other things. And I think that focusing on ourselves can be really difficult sometimes. So I'm honored that you would take this time for yourself and invite me into that space with you. Today's class, it's going to be 30 minutes. It's literally, you don't need to have ever practiced yoga before. Like maybe you're watching this and you came into it thinking like, I'm not going to actually practice yoga. I might watch, but like if you decide in a little bit that you do actually want to practice, that's okay. You don't need to have any special outfit on. You don't need to have a yoga mat. You don't need to have anything specific. You already have everything that you need. Everything that you need is already happening inside of you. And honestly, this practice is just a way to come back home to yourself. And that's going to mean that the practice is going to look like a lot of different things while you're doing it. The postures should just flow with how you are feeling today. If I say to practice a posture and you are like, absolutely not, I'm not doing that, that is not for me, I respect that. That is yoga, to receive yourself, to sit in the balance and the intersection and the conflict. That is beautiful. Lean into that. If you want to modify the postures in a way that I'm not saying, like you might have yoga blocks or a strap or a blanket or a bolster or anything like that with you, that's dope. Legit, make this practice so cozy, make it something that you can just literally retreat into. Yeah, I think that I have rambled enough. I think that's enough. So we're going to start on our backs in corpse pose. And before we go there, corpse pose is one of those postures that like is so common that I think we often overlook it. We'll be like, just like you, like, yeah, I lay down all the time. I go to sleep. Like, what do you think? I understand. But in this experience, often just being on the ground, just being still and with ourselves, that is the hardest posture of all. So let it be hard and take your time and just let yourself fall into it. So I'm sitting on my butt, and before I go any further, I'm going to scoop out my butt meat so that I can actually feel my sits bones plugging into the ground. So you just reach underneath, pull out your butt meat, slide it out. And then when I do that, my legs fall wide apart from one another. That's great. Let your body fall open. I'm going to pick up my belly off of my thighs, settle it right in between. Close your eyes and just let your whole body get soft. Roll down onto your back, let everything get soft. And then as you're ready, bring your feet onto the ground with your knees pointing up. And spread your arms wide. Really try to take up space. There are so many parts of this life in which we have to make ourselves small. So many parts where we try to fit into a box, where we try not to be seen. This is not one of those places. Take up space with your whole self. If you want to have your legs spread wide, go for it. If you want feet on the ground, go for it. If you want to bring the knees together, thighs together, and let the feet come to the outside edges of the mat, you'll roll onto your big toe edges. Gives you a little like inverse hip opening, go for it. If you want the other direction, you can bring the soles of your feet together, let your knees knock out, coming into like a butterfly pose. But really just find the resting posture that your spirit needs. Find a place where you're able to fall apart without explanation. And then when you're ready, just let your eyes close. And you can feel free to make little micro adjustments in your body. If you have large breasts, you might notice that they rise up towards your throat and kind of start to choke you out a little bit. You can bring your hands to the top of your cleavage and just gently press the flesh down and away. If your head kind of gets jammed into your neck, you can pick up your head with your hands, interlace your fingers behind the back of your head and let your thumbs cradle the nape of your neck. And just gently drop your head from side to side. Pull your head out of your spine. But then once you're ready, when it's time, and only you will know when it's time, let your whole body fall open and into stillness. Your eyes are closed, but your heart is open. You relax the spaces in between your eyelashes, in between your eyebrows. You don't have to hold yourself up here. You don't have to make excuses here. There's no explanation needed. Every piece of you is exactly where it needs to be. You are no accident. You were made for this. You may start to notice your breath. The way it ebbs and flows, goes up and down. You don't need to change anything about your breath. You don't need to make anything happen. Just notice it. Give it the gift of your attention. Acknowledge it. See what happens as you notice it. Does it become more even? Does it fill you up from head to toe? Let this breath guide you. Let it be your teacher. Let it be your wave. Go where it goes. When the breath stops, you stop. And then as you're ready, when it feels like it's time, bring your hands to the tops of your thighs. And I'm getting inside of my leggings, up underneath my fat roll, to really spread my hands wide at the tops of my thighs. Take up space. Touch yourself. Feel the different pieces of yourself. And just gently press the flesh away with your hands. Spread wide through your fingers. Press the flesh away. Press the thighs away. And as you do that, the knees start to knock from side to side. That's good. Go with it. Follow the natural rhythms of what your body wants to do. And unite the breath with those movements on the inhales and on the exhales. And as the knees move side to side, your knees might drop over to the right. And inhale up, drop them over to the left, exhale. Just creating spaciousness. And you just see where your feet want to be. My feet are on the ground, knees pointing up. And the feet might go as wide as the mat or wider. And as you drop the knees to either side, your head will go in the opposite direction. The knees to the left, gaze to the right, and vice versa. Knees to the right, gaze to the left. Relaxing that ear down on each side. And then when you're ready, come back through center. Feet are on the ground, knees point up, and then draw your knees into your chest. And some of us may hug the knees together. Maybe you can grab for either elbow. I like to hook up underneath my knees and separate the knees wider than my belly. Just go wide and just rock around here on your back. You're saying hello. You're seeing what's going on in your body today. No one else's. Just see what's going on. You can hook your ankles around each other. Relax your shoulders. Your shoulders are going to want to hitch up and get really involved. Now it's not the time. They can just chill. You just rock from side to side. If it feels good, reach with your left hand for your left foot, your right hand for your right foot, and come into happy baby. Kick the feet up to the sky. Flex your toes, roll your ankles, breathe. It's kind of different for everybody. You just see what feels good for you right now. You might want to go for a wide-legged, extended, reclined straddle. Extend the legs. You might grab a strap or take your shirt off, wrap it around the soles of your feet. Use that. You can take your belt off. Use that as a strap to draw the feet in. Every way that you could practice this posture is perfect. Every way that you show up as yourself. It's perfect. Breathe. And then when you're ready, keep your right hand and your right foot together. Drop your left foot down to the ground. And just take a moment here. I like to bring my left hand on top of my left hip, rooting that down, relaxing through the back of the head, pressing into the left foot. If you want a little bit more, you can extend the left leg towards straight. I kind of like it with the foot on the ground. Relax that right shoulder down. And then switch. Come back into happy baby pose. One hand, one foot each. And then hold on to the left foot with the left hand. Bring the right foot down to the ground. Draw that left knee down. Breathe. Just keep drawing that left knee down. You can bring your right hand onto your right hip. And if you want, you can extend the right leg towards straight. And when you do that, you're trying to really extend through the sole of your right foot, relaxing the left shoulder down, breathing. And then when you're ready, let that left foot go, draw the knees into the chest. And from here, we're just gonna rock up to seated and then come on to hands and knees. This posture that we're gonna practice next, though, you can practice seated. So if you wanna stay seated on your butt when you roll up, that's perfect. So from here, we're just gonna roll up to seated. Just take your time. It does not need to be dignified. Dignity is so overrated, literally. When you're ready, come to rock onto hands and knees. And then from hands and knees, or from your butt, if you're sitting on your butt, you can bring your hands onto your knees. But from hands and knees, we're just gonna practice a little bit of cat pose and cow pose. So on the inhale, you're gonna drop your belly down, drop your heart down, let your gaze come up and look up. Exhale, curl the spine, round the back, shake out the head and the neck, let that go. Let's do that again. Inhale, drop the belly down, drop the heart down, let the gaze come up, you look up. Exhale, curl the spine, round the back, shake out the head and the neck. Let's do it again, just like that. Inhale, drop the belly down, drop the heart down, let the gaze come up, you look up. Exhale, curl the spine, round the back, shake out the head and the neck. Just one more like that. Inhale, drop the belly down, drop the heart down, let the gaze come up and you look up. Exhale, curl the spine, round the back, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. And then from here, roll down onto your belly. Just take your time getting there. Roll onto your belly, and bring your arms out like airplane wings on the ground. Now from here, you're gonna roll onto your right side. With the right arm extended. And the right arm, you're rolling onto your right shoulder. If it feels good, flip the right palm up to the sky. You've got your left hand up like a little kickstand, holding you up. Relax your head and your neck. And just breathe here. And honestly, this might be plenty. This might be more than enough. If it feels good though, you're gonna keep rolling so that the left foot comes onto the ground back behind your right foot. You breathe. You find yourself here, and this might be perfect. This might be more than enough. If you'd like, though, you can bring that left arm up into the air, reach it back behind you, interlace the fingers, get that grip, and just gently roll the shoulders open. And that rolling will allow you to keep rolling so that both feet come onto the ground, knees pointing up. Breathing. Heart open. If you want, you can cross your left foot over your right knee. And then when you're ready, just roll back the way that you came, roll back onto your belly. Left arm swings wide open. And let your shoulders sing. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's do that again. So you're gonna roll onto your left side this time. And the left arm is out to the side like an airplane wing. The legs stack on top of each other. This might be plenty. Might be more than enough. If it feels good, you're gonna bring that right foot onto the ground behind your left leg. Let the head be heavy on the ground. And if the head is like really far away from the ground, you can tuck a blanket up underneath you. You can tuck a block up underneath your head. Whatever feels good to you, whatever feels needed. And then when it feels good, if it feels good, bring the right arm up into the air, drop it back behind you, interlace the fingers, and you might drop the hand back behind you and just have your arm back behind you. That might be plenty. But if you can, you keep rolling onto your back with the fingers interlaced so that both feet come onto the ground. The head and the neck are heavy. Breathe. Knees point up. And just let yourself feel all of it. Every emotion, every thought, every sensation, just let it all be there. Beautiful. Beautiful work. When you're ready, roll back onto your belly. Just take your time getting there. Let it happen as you're ready. Very nice work. Very nice work. Now come up onto your forearms. Coming into Sphinx pose. So you've got the elbows tucked up underneath your shoulders. Just kind of check that out first. Spread wide through your fingers. Let your pelvis get really heavy on the ground. Like if you feel yourself kind of hitching up in your crotch, just melt. Melt. And if you get scared to melt, that's okay. That's a part of it. All the sensations are a part of it. All the feelings are needed. Spread wide through your fingers. Curl the chest open and start to look forward and then up. Broadening across your collarbone. Pressing into the pelvis. Breathing. Breathe. The whole point of every posture is just to breathe. The breath we practiced in the invocation, that breath, we're just trying to maintain it. You can press into the tops of the feet and extend from the feet through the crotch all the way up through the heart. Shoulders relax down the back. And if it feels good, you can come up onto your hands, off of your forearms, melt open. You might look over your right shoulder, look over your left. And I find that when I come up onto my hands, I need to move my hands just a little bit further apart from one another, make a little bit more space for the shoulders. Relax that tight spot, wherever that tight spot is. It might be on the top of your thighs, might be in the small of your back, might be in the center of your butt cheek, but relax it. Looking up. And then when you're ready, come back down to the forearms if you came up onto the hands, and then melt down to your belly. Take your time. All right. Now from here, come back up onto your forearms. Bring that right knee to be bent on the ground. You know, like when you're sleeping and you feel like there's two types of people who bend their legs when they're sleeping and people who don't. If you pretend like you're the type of person who bends their knee when they're sleeping, bend your right knee up so it's at about a 90-degree angle. And honestly, this might be perfect. This might be more than enough. Our hips like to sing. They make a lot of sensation. They hold a lot of tension. They hold our grief. They hold our fears. And so if when you bring your knee up to be at that 90-degree angle, if your hips start singing, like an aria level singing, let it happen. Just let yourself feel it. If it feels good, you can extend that right leg, kick that right leg out, and smile the right hip down to the ground. Breathe. And you're on your forearms. That Sphinx pose again. Smiling through the chest, broadening across the heart. If you want, you can come up on your hands, melting those hips down. After a full day, the hips are gonna be full, carrying every single piece of you. Just let it be there. You can have that knee bent, you can have the leg straight, it's whatever you want. Look up, and then melt back down to your forearms. If you've got the leg extended, kick the foot back in, and then kick the right leg back behind you. Shake it up. Shake it out, shake it out. Let's do that on the other side. So you're gonna bend your left knee so that the knee is bent on the ground and it's at about a 90-degree angle. You just kind of chill there for a second, see what's going on. You're just saying hello. How you doing? What's going on, body? Thank you for holding me. Thank you for holding all of this tension, this grief, this fear, sadness. Just let it all be there. Every part of you is happening on purpose. It's all needed. If you want, kick that left leg out to the side. I have to get my leg behind a bookcase. If you are moving around in a space that is maybe not built for your yoga, that's life. What is life if not a constant experience of that? Keep smiling that left hip down to the ground. When I say smiling, I mean reeling, like smiling your left hip. Smile it down. Sometimes I say stuff and people be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't think about it. Don't try not to think about it, just feel it. So feeling it, smile your hip down to the ground. And if you're on your forearms, you can stay there if you want. You can come up on your hands, curl the chest open, smile through your face this time, through your lips. Look up. Aha, you're a real one. You got this. Come on down, back down to your belly. Kick that left leg back behind you. Very nice work. Very nice work, my darling. Oh, my darling. When you're ready, come up onto your knees or come to sit on your butt. Your legs can be extended. You can have them tucked up underneath you. Every way that you show up is correct. You can cross your legs, crisscross applesauce. It's whatever you want. But you close your eyes. Extend up through the crown of your head. Relax your shoulders down your back. And with the eyes closed, you just drop the gaze down. And if you want, you can bring your hands over your belly to hold. You can bring your hands crossed over your heart. You can bring both hands on your chest, one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. You can wrap your arms around you. You can bring the palms together in front of your chest, bowing your head. However you feel spirit move you, find your way there. Give blessings and gratitude for this body that carries you, that offers every opportunity. A body made that way on purpose. Take a deep inhale through your nose. And then exhale it out of your mouth, let it go. Bring your gaze up. And gently blink your eyes open. I like to say the light in me sees and honors the light in you, and the darkness in me sees and honors the darkness in you. Thank you for taking this time for yourself. Thank you for inviting me into this space with you. We're going to take a short break, somewhere between 13 and 15 minutes. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about my new book, Yoke, My Yoga of Self-Acceptance. I'll see you then.
Hi, everyone. It's Robin Young from NPR and WBUR's Here and Now. Welcome back to the over 100 of you who just took a yoga class with Jessaymyn Stanley. Lucky you. And welcome to the hundreds more that we've expected to join us for our conversation. Many of you know, but by way of introduction, Jessaymyn Stanley is the self-described Black, fat, queer, femme yoga instructor. We'd also add someone with a clear-eyed observation of our culture. Her new book, Yoke, talks about everything from consumerism to white supremacy in yoga, and we're going to talk to her about that. But a little bit of housekeeping. If you'd like to get the book, and I would recommend it, you can get a 10% discount by going to Frugal Bookstore. We've got a link in the chat. They're one of our partners tonight. They'll give you a discount. I highly recommend buying from them. And also, when we get back to libraries, the Boston Public Library Roxbury branch is another one of our terrific supporters tonight, so we thank them. And we know you have a lot of questions because they're already coming in, so feel free to shoot them. I'll ask them of Jessaymyn over the course of the next hour. You can go to slido.com, use the event code #Yoke, and we'll get to as many as we can as we talk. Jessaymyn Stanley, welcome back to you as well. The last time we spoke, we were in a sold-out Boston Public Library, and here we are with all this digital stuff. But I feel you.
I feel you too, and I'm so happy to be here with you, Robin. And I really want to. Can I just say?
Yeah.
Before we hopped on, you said that you found this book to be difficult, like that you thought it was difficult. And I just so appreciated you expressing that, because I feel like that is something, that's why I wrote the book, so that we could communicate about it across different opinions. And I'm honored and humbled to be in this space with you, and looking forward to talking to you about
and
this.
I should say, look at it. It's a tiny little thing. And I was telling you, I have a Roger Federer book that I'm having to read. It's this thick. When I say difficult, I meant I had to think. I had to go back and read over passages. I had to self-examine. I had to kind of think, well, is that how I feel about the only Black person in my yoga class? I had to think about that. So let's start right at the beginning where you do. The book's name is Yoke, and you start with a late night email you get from one of your many fans. And as you tell us, as you described yourself with that description, when the emails come in after midnight, you're not quite sure what you're going to hear, but it's someone who was telling you that in your first book, Everybody Yoga, you misspelled the word yoke, which is as in yoke together. You spelled it what?
I spelled it like the center of an egg, yolk, Y-O-L-K. Not the same at all. Actually, no. Well, please.
I was going to say, in that context, what you actually said, it's like somebody reading it and English isn't their first language, they would think, oh my goodness, she thinks yoga is an egg yolk.
Right, exactly. Well, and you know what's interesting about this whole experience is that I've had multiple people be like, okay, but have you thought about this? So just to clarify for anyone who's like, why is the book called Yoke? What are you talking about? What is this? Yoke is my American millennial translation of the word yoga. Yoga really means union. It means to bring together the different pieces of yourself. I think of it as bringing together the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of yourself. And so I translate that as yoking, which is also union. It's bringing together. And I did use that word to describe it in Everybody Yoga. And I also misspelled it in Everybody Yoga. And it's, yeah.
Can I just say, that's what editors are for. So, but it's also, it's a metaphor alert, because right in the first pages, you're human. You misspelled something, and we see that throughout the book. Maybe a yoga goddess, but very human. And I want to talk to you about what I also feel I may have picked up in the book, maybe not, because we did talk in 2017, and you said you wrote that book for every fat, old, exceptionally short person, anyone who can't accept their beauty, who thinks that they're ugly. I love you have a line in the book. It's about when you're describing yourself, as you often do, just to get it all out there. And you said, I'm fat. And someone said, oh, but you're beautiful. And you smiled to yourself because you were saying to yourself, I didn't say I wasn't beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But you did say in that first book, you wrote it for kids, people in yoga, students in yoga who look different. And there were times when you would walk out of a yoga class feeling a vague sense of discrimination. That was in the first book, discrimination. I thought, that's interesting. This book feels to me like it has more of an edge. Much. We've moved to, you talk about what you see as white supremacy in yoga, about appropriation of culture. Jump right there.
I mean, I think that American yoga culture is based in the same soil as American history. And American history is rooted in white supremacy. And in that same way, it shows up in the yoga world. And I know that when I initially thought of writing this book, I definitely had a bone to pick with every white yoga person who has frustrated me over the years, where I felt like this is racism, and it's racism that no one wants to acknowledge. But then in the process of writing the book, I realized that really my yoga was not to talk about anyone else's white supremacy. It's not about anyone else. It's really about accepting my own internalized white supremacy, accepting my own internalized racism. And that actually that is what the practice of yoga is offering. It's every posture is an opportunity to connect with your breath. As you connect with your breath, you are led inside of yourself. And inside yourself, there is a whole lot of chaos, a whole lot of problematic stuff, a whole lot of conflict at the intersections of your identity. And Yoke is really about reflecting on those conflicts. And for me, racism is one, cultural appropriation is one. Cultural appropriation is so common in American yoga, and it is very often not discussed at all because many people are afraid to be a part of the problem. But I would argue that appropriation is just a part of it's a part of this American experiment. And I think that what's more important than pointing a finger or blaming or being angry at yourself or anyone else, it's really to just accept it, to stop trying to pretend it's not there and just accept it.
Well, let's talk about, can we just talk about the appropriation, give some examples first, because I couldn't help but notice when it comes to appropriation, you don't say namaste. In your class, you say, I see the light in me, sees the light in you. The dark in me, you added, also sees the dark in you, but no namaste. And you tell a story about a training class that you go to, and you settle in to watch a film about India and spirituality. This is going to be great. And then you notice every single person in the film is white. But then what happened in the class when you raised that?
Well, when I brought up that I was uncomfortable with us watching this video where we are basically being treated to like appropriation 101, it was a lot of, I felt, white people appropriating South Asian culture. And I was like, is this the way that we should be processing yoga? And my teacher literally just was like, I never thought of it that way. I never thought about that. And I don't know why she would have thought about that. I mean, honestly, like I don't think it's uncommon to not think about this because it's not a very fun thing to think about. Who likes to think of themselves as a colonizer? But like the reality is that we are coming from a deep lineage of colonization, and that is just what it is. And it's no shame in the game. It just is what it is. Well, and I think that, oh, go ahead, please, yeah. please.
Just to hold up 1 second, I'm going to, one of the questions that's come in kind of is related to this. Did you ever experience limitations and hypocrisies in studio from instructors? And if so, how did you react? And I think that right there, the film, and there was another example that you gave where you were the only person of color in the room and the only person who was seeing this emperor with no clothes, these white American actors discussing India and spirituality, which is just hard. That is hard. But
I think it is so common. It's so common. I think that, you know, at the time I was so offended, and I'm really grateful for the years that I've had to think about this since then. No one else in my class had an issue with the video. My teacher had no issue with it. I felt like I had caused a problem in the class. And so to this question, I know there are a lot of us who are out in classes who are like, this is sketchy. I don't like what's happening here, but I'm not really sure what to do about it because like do I say something to the teacher? Do I stop the class? Do I leave the class? And I mean, honestly, this is a huge part of why I don't personally go to a lot. Like if I don't get a personal recommendation for a yoga studio, I don't go there or for a teacher or whatever the experience is, I don't go just because I don't know them. I don't know what they're about. I don't know what they're trying to share. And I think that anytime it could be cultural appropriation or some other thing, but I feel like anytime that the practice does not sit well with your spirit, there's no reason to continue to be in that space. Like you're being provoked for a reason, maybe a good reason, maybe a bad reason, but it's just all paying attention to what comes up for you is important. And I think that often when we want to, I shy away from wanting to like talk to the people about it, like go to the teacher or the studio or whoever and be like, did you know that you are being problematic for this, that, and the third reason? Like, I feel like you can do that. But I think that as a practitioner of yoga, there has to come the question, why am I doing that? Where does that desire come from? Why do I feel compelled to correct this other person? And more often than not, what I find in my own practice is that I want to correct somebody else because I'm ashamed of myself. And that shame that I have for myself is I don't need to project that onto anybody else. I can just not come back to the studio. There's no reason to make it about anybody else. And even this is something that comes up in the chapter White Guilt, where I talk about racism. I say, I'm not talking to white yoga people about race anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't care. It's not about, I think that a lot of times we try to make our journeys about other people or like try to project onto other people. And it's like, it's not about, that's their yoga, that's their practice. Let them do their thing.
Do you mind talking about it for a few minutes now?
Yes, please, yeah.
Because this was also such a powerful topic, race. And you were at an event and ready to leave, and one of the last questioners is a tall, young Black man in the back of the room who raised his hand and said, I'm usually the only Black man in a class filled with white women. I'm not comfortable. This propels you into a whole bunch of thinking. Where did that take you?
I mean, honestly, prior to him asking that question, this was the kickoff book tour event for Everybody Yoga, like at hometown kickoff, sold out music hall. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. The last question totally floored me because I was like, my white supremacy, my internalized racism is so deep. I did not know I was allowed to ask that question. What are we talking? Because I realized when he said it, I was like, I feel this way all the time. And specifically for Black men who our society, I mean, specifically the relationship between white women and Black men in our society is fascinating. You go back, you think about like Birth of a Nation, the way that race is structured in that film, the way that has carried throughout history, the idea that white women should be afraid of Black men. And that he's like, I'm literally in this space where I'm supposed to be finding my inner chill or accepting myself. And I'm in a room full of people who have been taught to be afraid of me. Like, what is that? What is that? And I mean, I would argue there is the yoga practitioner in me says that's the yoga, is to have that experience. That's the balancing. That's everything being there. But on a practical level, just as like person to person, I'm like, that is not, that's, nobody wants to feel that way. No one wants to feel excluded in that way. And that's definitely something that I have experienced, continue to experience in the yoga world. And I think it's something that a lot of other people experience as well.
Well, I'm not going to ask you, as a white practitioner, still in the beginner phase after 20 years, I'm not going to ask.
Aren't we all?
We all, exactly. I'm not going to ask you, as a white person practicing yoga, what white women should do about that, because that's not your job. That's not his job. But it's just the observation. I mean, you go on to say, you know, and I'm going to say this now, that probably beautiful black yoga practitioner that is in your class is probably also half naked and sweating and trying to have the same experience that you're trying to have. Is it just about our not, letting those whatever thoughts we have pass through? I don't want your, but
oh my God.
Well, you do say it's not about saying we're not having thoughts, because we are.
Yes, please. Oh my God. I know that I said I don't want to talk to white yoga people about this, but I'll go back because I totally do. And I think that like, this is why we have collective practice. This is the first time yoga has existed for thousands of years. And this is the first time where people have practiced collectively in this way, especially separated by oceans and time and age and all of these different things. Like, we find ourselves together, and it's so that we can heal these deep systemic problems that exist beyond the yoga world. So I'm really here for this conversation. And I think that the real key is just feeling all of the feelings. I think that so often we are afraid to feel the saddest, scariest thing. And I notice this most often with white people, that there is a fear around experiencing the depth of sadness that comes from being the blood of colonizers. And I think that makes sense. I'm like, I feel you. I get where you're coming from. Like, I don't like my own internalized racism. I can get how you wouldn't like yours either. And I think that what ends up happening is this kind of like how can we fix it for Black people so that they feel comfortable? Black people are good. You don't need to worry about that. What can happen is that each individual person, white, Black, or literally any color, can just stand in the fact that, yes, I am a product of racism. I am a part of racism. I contribute to it daily in this way or that way. And I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to make it better, or I'm not even trying to like do it more or less. I'm just letting it all be there. And what it looks like to let it all be there is true inclusivity. It's truly, because it means not seeing somebody else as the other. You can see that other person as just like you. You can see them as just as complicated and messy and sitting at the space, but it can't be about just trying to feel something good or skipping over the bad part to get to the fun part. It's got to be about just letting it all be there.
By the way, for those who are wondering, well, really, I mean, how racist could yoga be? There's the Yoga World War, the cover of Yoga World, where you were going to be on the cover of this incredibly well-read industry magazine. How exciting for you. This broke my heart. This was tough. You go pick it up on the stand, and it's not you on the cover. What happened?
I was told that I was going to be on the cover of Yoga Journal. We did a whole shoot. They came to North Carolina. We did I had not discussed with anyone that there was going to be more than one person on the cover of the magazine. I didn't find this out until I went to Barnes and Noble to get the magazine. And when I saw it, I mean, my knee-jerk reaction, honestly, was that I needed to be honored to be in the company of the other person who was on the cover, Maddie Isradi, who is one of the she has since passed away, but she was one of the founders of myself, to be honored by that. But I also did wonder, what the reason was that no one had talked to me about this beforehand. And because it had been announced ahead of time, there were people who were expecting me to be on the cover and were very surprised to see this white passing slender yoga practitioner also featured. And they were very upset about it. And there were many calls of Yoga Journal being racist and being fat phobic, as I was the first fat Black person to be on the cover of Yoga Journal. But my reaction to it, I was very interested in the back and forth between people who were like, Yoga Journal is racist, and then the people who were like, Yoga Journal can do whatever they want to do. I thought that was really interesting. But at the same time, I was like, why am I striving for the approval of this predominantly white institution? Where is that coming from in me? How much has that been a part of my life? Quite a bit, actually. If I really am honest with myself and I look back at my life, I've striven for the approval of whiteness quite a bit. And I knew that I was being tokenized by Yoga Journal. I was very comfortable with that. Why is that the case? Why was I comfortable with that? Where does the desire to assimilate come from? All of these questions came up for me that are things that, yeah, I would rather not look at that. It's not really fun to think about that. But at the same time, like, just accepting it and just letting my shit stink. That's what it is. Just let it stink. That has provided deep spiritual cleansing for me, and an amount of compassion and openness that I really think is what yoga is all about ultimately.
Well, but to be clear, because a lot of people listening know this story, but if they don't, you were told you were going to be on the cover of Yoga Journal, influential magazine in the industry. You go so excited to buy it, and you're not on the cover because done for the first time ever 2 covers. And nobody ever told you this. I mean, yes, I can hear you've worked through it. That's what yoga is. But that must have hurt.
It did hurt. It did hurt. But I will say that was not the first time in my life that something like that had happened. Like, it was not the first time that I had thought that I was going to receive some accolade by an institution, or that I was going to be lifted up by white values, by white supremacy, that I thought it was not the first time that I thought there was a seat at the table for me. And in fact, there was not a seat at the table. So it was really, I mean, like my experiences in growing up in a predominantly white town, going to a predominantly white, especially a predominantly white all girls boarding school for high school, all of that. Also now working in a predominantly white, deeply fat phobic industry. This was not the first time that something like that had happened to me. And so while I was very upset that day, and I was sad, I think that anybody probably would be, I was more introspective, I think, than anything else.
Can we talk about your body? Lots of questions here, and I want to get to them. A friend of mine asked me to ask you, and I was also intrigued because I read in the book that there had been other times, like when you were working on a book, you lost a lot of weight. You hardened something, and that prompted in me the question as well. Is it that you have tried to lose weight for health reasons or for vanity, for whatever reason, and you couldn't, and you've concluded, you know what, this is my body, we come in all different shapes? Or is it that you embrace the fuller body as Buddha does? Where is your approach to your body?
I've always been fat. That is something that I like, as far back as I can remember, I've been fat. And there are a lot of reasons why I'm fat. We could have a whole conversation about the experience of my mother being bedridden for a huge part of my childhood, and my brother and I pretty much raising ourselves on ramen noodles. Like that that doesn't really set you up to have a great relationship with food. Always being excited to go out to eat because my family can never afford to go out to eat. These are the things that people don't talk about with fat identity, and it's why fat acceptance is so crucial and why it's so important, because fat people are not allowed to be human. We are often told that we're supposed to that we're the before and a before and after, and that if we don't get to the after, then our lives are not worthwhile. And so for me, accepting my fat body, accepting myself as a fat person has been a really crucial part of owning my identity and owning who I am as a whole person, so that even if I lose a bunch of weight and am no longer seen as fat by other people, I am still fat. Like I still understand myself in that way. And I think that I think it has more to do with self-acceptance than anything else. And I do talk about in the book how when I first started practicing yoga, I did lose a lot of weight. And I talk about in Yoke how I lost a lot of weight, not just because I was aggressively practicing yoga postures every single day for hours a day, but I also did not have I didn't have enough money to eat 3 meals a day. So I was really only eating 1 meal every day. And this is another thing that people don't talk about with weight loss, is that often it is under duress, and it is not because people want to be healthy. It is because they have deep trauma going on in their lives. And I would say that I started to gain weight when I started to get my shit together. Like when I started to find the balance, that was when my body started to balance out as well. But it was interesting because I had shared so many photos of my body over the years with people on social media, that they were used to me looking a certain size. So that for me to gain weight was like, what's going on? Do you not care about your health? Do you not? It's so interesting to me the way that we pass judgment on one another, like we have claim to each other. It's so interesting. I think it's because we're trying to control ourselves, and so you try to control that person on the internet. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that weight loss is really confusing. It's a very clear scientific equation where, like, more calories out than calories in. And it's really about balancing. It's about nutrition more than anything, more than physical fitness. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's very interesting to me when people are like, so why haven't you lost weight? I'm like, because I like eating, and because I'm not obsessed with changing my body for other people. But I think that what I really, the point of the chapter, it's a full-time job loving yourself, is that I think that when we talk about body acceptance and body positivity and body liberation, that it very much seems like you like wave a wand and you're like, poof, oh my God, I love my body every day. I never have to think about self-hate ever again, girl. I am so happy. And that's just not the case. Like, I still deal with the same things that I've dealt with this whole time. I've had body dysmorphia as long as I can remember. I have ups and downs every single day. But it's accepting the ups and downs, accepting that there's no ending point, that it's all a journey, because your body is constantly changing. That's what's so wild about it. We get so obsessed with like staying in the same place and looking the same way forever. But age tells you more than anything that like your body is literally going to change, like regardless of whether or not you want it to. And so being able to just say like, you know what, I'm just going to accept it. Come what may, come hell or high water, I'm just going to take whatever this is and just hold it. And I'm going to see the scars as a benefit. I'm going to see the every injury, every change, every shift, that was a blessing. That's what I'm going to say. And that's what I'm going to see.
Well,
and yeah, that's the journey for me.
While not starving yourself.
Well, that's starving yourself. Exactly.
But you're answering all these questions that are coming in as we go by. People are asking, how do you, how can you suggest something for a friend who's struggling with hatred of her body due to societal pressures? And you and I were talking before this. You are wearing your line of clothing, and that's one place to start, I would imagine. Look at places where you see yourself reflected in clothing that's sold.
Definitely. I think it's very important to curate the images that are around you and to curate the people and voices that are in your space, because we don't even notice what we're taking in. But if you're around like body negative, fat shaming people, you are only ever going to spew body negativity and fat shaming. And so if you say that you're not going to spend time around people who make you feel bad about your body, because even maybe they don't say anything about your body, the most pervasive things come whenever we say them about ourselves. So maybe they talk about their own bodies in a way that doesn't make you feel good. Maybe you stop hanging out with that person so much. Like when you're on Instagram, like who are you following? What does it look like? Like what is the messaging that's being expressed? Unfollow people that are not making you feel good about yourself, and really surround yourself. I realized recently, like somebody during like the peak of quarantine, someone was like, oh my God, I'm getting all this messaging about like, don't gain COVID weight and like, don't get fat during quarantine and all this stuff. And I was like, I didn't know. First of all, I didn't realize that people were still talking about fat phobia. I was like, that is so old. Like, it's so weird to me whenever I hear stuff like that. I'm like, we're still doing that? But I realized like, I have so carefully curated my world that like, I don't even hear stuff like that. Like whenever I engage with people saying things like that, I'm just like, that is so outdated. Like, that's not, we're accepting bodies now. It's 2021. We're moving past this idea that anyone should look any certain way.
Well, and somebody else just said the yoga apparel industry racist and fat phobic, and there are catalogs. We've been talking about this, Rihanna, that where you can see a wider, more diverse world reflected.
Yes. I mean, I think that there are a lot of brands that are doing a really great job of it. Like, I love being able to, I'm wearing the Underbelly Pride leggings. The Underbelly is my yoga and wellness community that you can find at theunderbelly.com. And I'm wearing our Pride leggings, but it's nice to be able to pair them with this like backless Rihanna Savage by Fenty bralette that is like made for a person who is shaped like me and also modeled by a person who is shaped like me. And I think that level of inclusivity, I think Savage Fenty is an excellent example of what it looks like to show a diverse array of bodies, not just fat bodies, not just Black bodies, but literally all different kinds of bodies. They're going to their website is so inspiring. And I think finding outlets that really are creating the world that you want to live in is crucial.
How do you deal, someone asks, with the negativity that comes from being a social media influencer? We mentioned you get an email after midnight, you're not sure like who's this coming from, or any kind of a notification. How do you deal with that? And we talked in 2017. It seems like so long ago. A lot can happen at your age in that time. How do you think you've changed because of this? Just not just the huge tsunami of love, but the negative that comes with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that it didn't feel this way at the time, but one of the great benefits of my life is that I was bullied pretty badly when I was in middle school. And during that experience, I didn't know it at the time, but I was really being taught about why people bully. And bullies bully because they are sad themselves. There's no one who is bullying another human being that is not deeply, deeply sad. Because if you're not sad, you don't bully. It's a really easy equation. So whenever I receive negative feedback on social media, provided that I am hydrating myself externally and internally, that I'm connecting to my spiritual self, uh, provided that those things are the case. When I receive negativity on social media, I really feel that that person is coming from a very sad place and that they need my compassion more than anything else, because I fully understand what it means to be sad. I fully get why you would troll somebody. I get why you would be negative. And it makes me want to hug that person, honestly, because it's likely that they have not received any positive feedback at all. They're not having people give them positive reinforcement on the internet, strangers sending them love. They're not feeling that. And so I think that if I'm feeling that, the least I could do is be compassionate towards somebody who's not having that experience. And that's how I deal with it. And I don't, I just try not to take it personally. I am not successful in this all the time. Like, I want to be really clear that I'm not just like, oh my God, yes, people troll the fuck out of me, but it's okay because, I figured it out. No, bitch. Like, people try me. They don't know that I'm from Greensboro, and I will pop back at them. And when this happens, I just try to remember that compassion is an option. But I also just try to remember that I don't have to take it personally. I don't know if you've read the 4 Agreements. I would recommend, literally, when you go get Yoke with your 10% discount, I would also recommend getting the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It is an incredible book that will change your life. One of the 4 Agreements is don't take things personally, because nothing is ever about you. There's nothing that another person does to you that has anything to do with you. It is about them. So I just try to remember that.
Okay, you've answered another question, a favorite book. One more book about yoga.
Ooh, okay. Well, the book that I quote extensively in Yoke is a translation of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali by Sri Swami Satchidananda. And I would recommend that translation of the Yoga Sutras to anyone who is interested in reading them. I think the sutras are timeless. They're an incredible way to provide context for life, and literally every question that you have about life is answered somewhere in the sutras. And I think that Swami Satchidananda's translation and commentary is so profound. And the way that he talks about the practice is very accessible. And I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in it.
Back to weight again, just, one has just come in. As I quoted you, which I just love the quote when someone said, but you call yourself fat, but I think you're beautiful. And you said, I didn't say I wasn't beautiful. And you explained of some of the food issues. And, I have friends who also, and know people who also just say, this is my body. I can't, look, there's just muscle here, this is it. This is my body and I love my body, and it's not a matter of weight. But, someone has asked, and others do, I know you have an answer. What about health? I mean, do you worry about heart disease? Do you worry about diabetes? You've said, this is it for now. If you have 3 nutritious meals a day, this is it. And we obviously see you do a lot of yoga. You're not twiddling your thumbs. So do you worry?
Definitely. Absolutely. I mean, if anyone, I think I talk about this in maybe a little bit in Everybody Yoga. I can't recall, but my mother was diagnosed with congestive heart failure when I was a child. My aunt passed away. That's the subject of the chapter Tabor City Funerals in my first book in Everybody Yoga. She passed away from a heart attack. My grandmother, who I talk about some in both Everybody Yoga and Yoke, had type 2 diabetes and passed away. So yes, to the person who has asked this question, yes, I do think about that. And it is something that I think about all the time, especially as I get older. And nutrition is something that has become much more important to me. And it's something that I think about a lot more. But, I think that there is the way that we look at other people and assume that we know everything about what's going on in their lives is fascinating to me. So that someone could see me and see what I look like and say, like, Like, what's going on with her? Like, what are you doing? I'm kind of thinking, to the person who's asking this question, or to anyone who would wonder about that, I'd be like, what's going on in your life? What are you, why are you so concerned about what's going on in my life? Like, I can tell you straight up that I have a very complicated relationship with food, and also as a Black woman, Black women being the people that the medical industry has failed the most. I definitely have a complex around the medical establishment. We can talk about that fluently and comfortably. And I think that that's what people don't want to talk about. People don't want to have those conversations. And so I think I'm more interested in that conversation than in any kind of conversation about, like, what are you doing with your health, Jessamyn? Like, I'm going to see my hydrotherapist this week and I drank New Plus for breakfast. I don't know what you want. Like, what are you looking for?
Well, we just saw this with COVID, that Black women, mostly frontline workers, were some of those who suffered the most during the pandemic. It's funny you talk about, you say this quite a bit in the book, and it sparked in me being honest about, I can come into a yoga class. By the way, here in the Boston area, phenomenal teachers, Tara, Brandon, Braxton. I mean, just my heart, But I know that there are times I've been in a yoga class and I think, oh my God, look at, there's a young woman next to me. She's perfect. She looks perfect. And I'm barely, I've got a frozen shoulder. I just had a knee replacement. I'm doing this thing, and they're like on their pinky doing something. And then at some point I'll meet them and they don't see themselves at all the way I see them. I mean, there are some very confident, very, traditionally what we think of as the traditional healthy look, sure, but it usually is true that somebody that's kind of setting off something in me turns out to not feel very good about herself.
Always. That's always the case. I mean, I've never met anyone who doesn't body shame themselves. It's something that we all have in common. And I honestly think that it's rooted in capitalism, and the fact that capitalism really operates at its peak whenever we all feel as though we're not good enough and that we have to buy something in order to be better. And so anyone who is living in capitalism and submits to its whim is under that spell. And it's just so interesting, though, because the grass is always greener and we're always looking at what somebody else has or could do. It might be body size, it might be the type of car you drive, it might be where you live, what you wear, who you know, like how much money you make, what job you have. There's always something to make you think that somebody else has it better, or they're really figuring it out. But the reality of life is that life is suffering, and that there is no one who gets by without experiencing some level of suffering. And that the person that you think has it all feels that they don't. And that probably that you have something that they would like to have. And I think that we can all kind of understand that and see that, and it's really what links us together. And I think that when we can accept that everyone is feeling that way, we can move forward together in a different way.
It yokes us.
Exactly. It yokes us together.
Not an egg.
Not an egg.
Talking about yoga, someone asks, what do you do? Are there things that you do as a full-bodied woman to get the poses correctly? Now, if people were in the class, we saw some of the things. I mean, literally just everybody wants to just, pull whatever's in the way out of the way. But you also said something in your last book about straps, that you strap yourself in a certain way. And what more can you share?
Well, what I would say, the big kind of evolution for me between Everybody Yoga and now is that I really have come to understand the ways that there are parts of my body that I would have before just tried to pretend don't exist, or say, like, make excuses for, or be ashamed of, or just try to make them go away. So one of the tricks for me that I didn't even realize I was doing, and I think this is extremely common, is wearing leggings that suck everything in, that hold every part of, that hold my belly in and my thighs in and my butt in, and it's pulling me in tight. And what happens with that is that not only can I not breathe effectively, and breathing is the whole point of this practice, it's the whole thing, that not only that, but that when I am holding the flesh in, I'm not taking up space. I'm not like letting myself really expand and unfold. And so something that I said this quite a bit in the class earlier, but it's always about like pulling out your belly and pulling out your butt meat and, rolling, like pulling your breasts down. And I talk about in Everybody Yoga how you can use different props to help with that process. Like it might be a block in different places. The strap, if you have large breasts, being able to wrap a strap around the top part of your cleavage so that when you go into upside down postures that your breasts don't choke out your throat. Like there's so many different little modifications that you can make to the practice. But I think the biggest shift for me personally has been not trying to hide away the parts of my body that I have been told to be ashamed of, and really just letting them hang out. Specifically, like if I'm wearing leggings that can show, even wearing these leggings, that when I'm practicing some postures, I would pull my belly out, hold it, first of all, own it, not say, oh my God, this stomach, oh my God, I'm so fat, oh God, none of that. Own this. Say, thank you. Thank you for what you have brought into my life. Thank you. Not, I'm so ashamed, I'm a bad person. How can you ever expect to be whole with yourself if you are making excuses for whole pieces of yourself? So owning it and then letting it be where it wants to be, making space for it. Spread your legs wider to make space for your belly. Spread your thighs wider. Low key, a belly in certain postures is an incredible way. It's like it's human made sandbags. It provides extra traction in the postures. So really seeing yourself as a positive and not as a negative, that to me is the most important thing to keep in mind as a fat practitioner.
And you talk about as a child, and you've said, growing up in a white town, going to a white, going to a white boarding school, where you wanted to be a cheerleader so bad. And I said to you the last time we talked, there at that school, those cheerleaders are going, damn, we could have had her, on the squad.
No.
I bet. But you as a child, you and even older, it sounds like you tried to get as small as you possibly could.
Mm-hmm. Not just physically, but definitely as emotionally small, as spiritually small, trying not to take up space. Like, I think that I and many other people have been told, you're too big, too much, you're doing too much, just calm down, don't be so much. It's too much to take in. And the reality is that I'm sure it is a lot. I'm sure I am a lot. Light shines bright. It's not going to be small. And it has only been, I would say in recent history, like within the last couple of years, that I have been able to accept that, yes, I am loud. Yes, I am big. Yes, my energy is tremendous. And it is scary to people. It is frightening. And that's okay. I don't have to not be scary.
Someone asks, and by the way, we only have a couple more minutes, so these questions have been incredible. Thank you. But send them in now if you want them to be asked. Someone asked, did you ever have a fat yoga teacher? Because they write, I had my first one with your underbelly class and moves I didn't know I could do. In other words, the teacher changed the experience for the student. Did you have one ever?
So my mother has always been very interested in spirituality and yoga, and she introduced me to Anna Guest Jelly of Curvy Yoga and Diane Bondi a long time ago, way before I started practicing yoga. And I really didn't care. I was not interested. I was like, I don't know. I had a really horrible experience with yoga when I was in high school, and I was like, yoga is stupid. I don't want to do that. So it wasn't until I started going to yoga classes on my own that I felt a connection to the practice. And I did have one yoga teacher who was fat. Her name is Allison Hinks. She used to teach. She used to have a studio here in Durham called Bull City Yoga. She was the first fat yoga teacher that I had ever seen up close, but I did not really. I didn't feel particularly connected to the fact that she was fat. I felt like she was just herself, and that she taught a very athletic, endurance-based practice, and it felt like if she's doing it, I can do it, and it's not about whether you're fat or small. It's just about being. And so that was very inspiring to me, but I wouldn't say that it was like, no, because I see Allie Hinks, now I know that fat people can practice yoga. Like, I was in predominantly thin yoga spaces, I would say. And actually, the yoga teacher that I had, who I think of as being the most like body positive, body acceptance driven teacher, is actually a thin 6 foot something white guy. He's not what I think anyone would think of whenever they think of like a body positive yoga teacher. But I don't think that body positivity actually has anything to do with what size you are. I think it has to do with accepting yourself for who you are fully. And he practices acceptance in a way that I think is really profound and has deeply impacted how I show up in my own practice. So, oh yeah, a lot of it has just been learning through my own practice.
Right. By the way, your mom was Baha'i, and
yeah,
you were born and raised Baha'i.
Both of my parents are Baha'is.
Well, I think your dad was Pentecostal and then moved over.
Oh, yes. You read the book. Yes.
How did that shape you? And what would you say that is, a Baha'i, to people who don't know?
Yeah, the Baha'i faith is really, the core beliefs of the Baha'i faith are that all religions are one, that there is one message of truth, and that all religions say the exact same thing, and that men and women are equal. That the comparison is that men and women are like the wings of a dove, and that if one wing is broken, the bird cannot fly. And also that racial equality is imperative in order for our world to survive, basically. And that is the soil that I was raised in, was the Baha'i faith, and it was a huge part of my upbringing. I don't think that there's any way to understate the importance of it. My parents continue to be very devout Baha'is. My father became a Baha'i in adulthood. My mother also, she was raised in the Baha'i faith, but she was also raised in Christianity. And as a Baha'i, you have to declare that you are a Baha'i when you're an adult. And so she declared as an adult as well. My parents created an environment where it was that way or the highway, I guess. Like, it was like, we are sticking with everything that is said in the Baha'i faith. And the Baha'i faith has some writings about homosexuality that compare homosexuality to leprosy. That in the same way that you wouldn't want to catch leprosy by hanging out with a leper, that Baha'is should not catch homosexuality by hanging out with homosexuals. And I discovered these writings around the time that I was coming out I came out as a lesbian and later came to understand myself as queer, but I read those writings whenever I was first coming out. And I was like, oh, that's a conflict of interest. And so that definitely allowed me to feel like it was okay for me to not be a Baha'i. I was like, I'm not going to be a part of this faith that does not believe that every piece of me should be present. And The interesting thing, though, about yoga is that it will always lead you back to every single piece of yourself, even the things you don't like. And it has led me back to the Baha'i faith and has helped me understand faith as something bigger than what human beings can categorize and really bigger than any one writing.
I just loved being reminded because, of course, a lot of us became, fascinated by Baha'i when Seals and Croft came out with their music and became a part of the faith. But what a faith for the moment. Mixed marriages are held to the highest esteem, and believing in the equality of races. What a faith for the moment. Jessamyn Stanley, I have one last question for you. How do I find your classes? You are wonderful.
You can find me on the Underbelly. You can try a 2-week free trial at theunderbelly.com. You can follow us on social media at The Underbelly Yoga. That's where all of my classes are. We have multiple tracks to root your yoga practice, the air track, the earth track, the fire track, and we're getting ready to launch the water track, which is all about connecting to your breath and connecting to a meditation practice. So I would love to practice with you there. And you can also find me on social media personally at My Name is Jessamyn. You can find my podcast at Dear Jessamyn. And you can find my cannabis justice initiative, We Go High, at We Go High NC.
Oh, I didn't even get to that, did I? How you feel that smoking weed enhances your practice. Now, you say in part of the book, some of my yoga practice may offend you. It offends me, you say of yourself. But just for those who say, wait a second, I thought, they're about to maybe exit the room and they're like, well, wait, what? Because yoga's natural high. So explain that connection.
So yoga and cannabis have always had a relationship. Cannabis and all forms of spirituality, honestly, it's always been linked because cannabis is a plant that is often used to cleanse yourself for spiritual practices. And so I think a lot of times whenever people come to yoga, they are very much taken aback by the internal work that is being asked of them. They don't want to engage on a deeper level. They don't want to have the hard conversations. And cannabis makes those conversations a lot easier to have. It makes you able to smile when the going gets tough. And that is that's the point of all of this, is to be able to find a smile even in the hardest points. And I think that cannabis is, I didn't realize when I first started smoking weed and practicing yoga that they had literally, for thousands of years, these two things have gone together. I didn't realize that I was tied into such a long lineage, but that's why I talk about it in Yoke. And that's why I think plant medicine is such a crucial piece of whether it's Palo Santo, sage, essential oils, literally flowers, potted plants, whatever kind of plant medicine you're able to connect with, it will bring you to have a deeper connection with your most true self.
All of this, how much did we just talk about? So much race and consumerism and yoga outfits and weed at the end there. And that's why I said this is there's so much here. The book is called Yoke. Remember, please, if you decide to pick it up, and I would highly recommend it, go to our friends at the Frugal Bookstore. We'll have the link for you in the chat. We also want to thank our friends at the Boston Public Library Roxbury branch. Frequent them when you can. Everybody at WBUR CitySpace who figured out a way to have these gatherings in this terrible time. And Jessamyn Stanley, wow, we just got to hang out a little bit. And I hope everybody felt that way, that you got to hang out with Jessamyn. You can find her at the Underbelly. And just thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. Thank you, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Everyone travel safe going home. Oh, wait, you're already there. Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good night.